And welcome back once again. If you're new here, my name is Rusty, and this is my channel where I talk about my favorite movies, mostly horror, and my favorite music, mostly metal. And welcome to day 3 of Man Plus Machine Week here on my channel. So, as you saw from the title, day 3 is going to be my little Johnny Depp movie called Transcendence. Yes, yesterday, Dr. Will Castor was only human. I dig this movie, man. Some people didn't like it. It's got a decent score for a horror sci-fi movie on International Movie Database anyway. But yeah. So Transcendence 2014, directed by Wally Pfister, written by Jack Fagan, stars Johnny Depp, Rebecca Hall, Morgan Freeman, Peaky Blinders, Dude, Cillian Murphy, that guy from The Avengers, what's his name? Paul Bettany. So yeah, that is what we're going to talk about now. So, Transistor? Transcendence opens in Berkeley, California, where we see Max walking down the street. We discover there's no power. He talks about that there being rumors of power existing in Boston and perhaps Denver, but that's only rumors. So we're introduced to a world that does not have any power. And this is a flashback movie, meaning that the movie starts at a time and then goes back and tells you how we got to this point at the beginning. So we go back 5 years earlier, where we see Dr. Will Castor and his wife Evelyn as they're getting ready to go to a fundraiser for, I guess, his organization. And we see them meet Max at the event. We also see Morgan Freeman at another big high-tech lab, and we see yet another doctor at a different lab doing something, and we are introduced to Johnny Depp's character, Dr. Will Castor, who begins making a speech about artificial intelligence and the heights to which it could reach, consciousness, which he has decided to call transcendence, meaning transcending from a mere machine, a mere computer program, to a consciousness, and he calls that transcendence. So as he's doing all of this, we see what we don't understand at first, like that guy that was bringing in the cake. He's bringing in a birthday cake through all of the security points to Morgan Freeman. Someone even brings him a piece of the cake, but he sits it down. We see another an IT place, and then there's that one where the guy was working with a monkey. Now, while Dr. Castor is giving his speech, we suddenly see one of those places blow up in a very shocking scene. We see a couple of people run in and actually murder the doctor that in front of his little rhesus monkey. And we see Morgan Freeman, Joseph is his character. We see him, I guess he looks puzzled on his face. And we realize that what it is that he's stopped hearing all of the noise behind him. And he like takes out his ear thing and notices that he hears no sound of typing and stuff. And he turns around and everyone is dead. They're just face down. And, his whole team is just face down in front of their computers. Because that cake, which he had never touched, was poisoned with diloxin. So, that all takes place while Dr. Castor is giving his speech, when we see one guy stand up and ask him a question about, who do you think you are? Doesn't it seem a little weird that you're trying to make a god, create a god? And his response to that is that isn't that what man has always done, which is absolutely true. So after his speech, and they're walking out, and he's being congratulated, and all that, he's walking down the hall. We see that same guy, and we see what we later find out is Bree. We see her walking away, and we see that guy walk up. I think it's Lucas Haas. I think that's who's playing that character. But we see him walk up and call his name and then shoot him. And then blow his own brains out onto the roof. And yeah, that was it for that guy. And he ends up being taken to the hospital. Now, the bullet didn't hit anything really important, so he actually got off very lucky. And it's while he's in the hospital that Joseph contacts him, and he finds out, because it's all over the news, right? He finds out that all of these IT places had been destroyed, attacked, all their teams killed, things like that. And we're introduced to Agent Buchanan. That's Murphy. He is with Joseph, and they want to talk to him in private, where they get into his office and tell him that pretty much the top minds and the top tech places that were closest to creating an AI were now set back decades, because all the smart teams were dead. All the people running these teams were dead. These scientists were dead. And that basically him and his team and his idea was the only thing that was left. And that who had done this was yet another Christian cult organization known as Rift. That they are the ones who had initiated this coordinated attack, which in this day and age is really not shocking at all. And it is certainly not science fiction, because that could happen. So, Rift is the name of the cult, and Will's lab and his supercomputer, his AI, that he's been working towards perfecting into Transcendence, is known as PIN, P-I-N-N. and that his is pretty much the only thing left. The only thing that the government can turn to fund, the only thing that's close to that research, that line of work, is him and his team and his creation, the pen computer. So he's like, well, fine. I mean, I'm not going to let you fund me. I'm not going to be involved with the government, but sure, you can see my stuff, and I will continue my work. But he then starts getting extremely sick within like 2 days of being shot. He's like getting really, really sick, and it turns out that the bullet was poisoned. I can't think of the name of the medication, but in real life, which is probably what this was taken from, if you've heard about it, that Russian double agent who was poisoned by Putin, it was in the news. This is real, and he's poisoned with that poison that gives you incurable radiation poison that kills you within a couple months. Well, that's what was on the bullet that guy shot Will with. So he's going to die, and he knows it, and everyone else knows it. So you have to deal with the dialogue, the drama of him and his wife, having to deal with this. So Will decides that he's going to give up on Penn. He just wants to spend his last 6 weeks with his wife as he dies. There's really nothing else that he can do. But his wife, Evelyn, she gets a hold because Buchanan and Joseph and all, they had told him that the doctor that was with the monkey that was killed, that he believes he had uploaded correctly the monkey's brain patterns to the computer, and it had superimposed consciousness, and that he believes that worked, but that was only a recent discovery. And they had given this information to Will and his wife to see how it could work or be incorporated into his own research. Then all of this happened. So Evelyn believes that they might be able to do that with Will and Penn, because Penn was so advanced that it could handle superimposing human consciousness onto it and bringing it to life. So Will doesn't believe it would work, and Max doesn't believe it would work, but he knows that it's making Evelyn happy, and it's giving her hope and helping her deal with this trauma. So they agree to try. So they know that Penn will be attacked and their labs and stuff, so they secrete it away to this old abandoned schoolhouse, because they know this cult is out there and will come for them. So they secrete themselves away, where they start working on this process. Now remember, Max and Will, they're only doing it to keep her happy and help her deal with his death, his impending death. But he still does everything he's supposed to do. And they set up all the equipment, and they run all of the programs. They put all of the information. They put pen and all of the information into their this little room of supercomputers that they made. So we then sort of get to see some of the inside of this cult. And we meet this bitch that I absolute hate, and that's Bree. And we'll talk about that at the end too. But I hate that bitch. I absolutely hate her because I hate cult leaders. If you know me, if you know my history, you know what I used to do for a living. I hate Bree. I hate Bree. I wanted her dead, like really, really bad. But so they continue to work. They even do the transfer, which is not something instantly. It was like many, many, many days of transferring all of his memories, the electrodes in his head, transferring all of his memories and his consciousness and everything into this machine, into the pen program. And Will dies. And they have to deal with that, with his death. They did finish all of the transferring, but of course nothing has showed up on the computers. We get to see, like I said, a little bit of the inside workings of this cult that did all of this damage. And Evelyn and Max are about to give up. They've waited to see if this program would collate and coalesce, and nothing, it doesn't really seem to be doing anything. So they're actually going to shut it down, and they do shut it down. And then, and I think that's what it needed, right? Was it needed a reboot, sort of like updating Windows. So it needed a reboot, which is probably something that they never thought about. But if you know anything about computers, I think that that's exactly what triggered it. Because they shut it down, but then she remembered, wait a second, that psycho cult is out there. We don't want them getting a hold of this information, so we should probably wipe the drives. So she turns the stuff back on. And that's when, as they start to mess with it and probably get it ready to, I guess, reformat, they actually get a text message on the screen, and it's Will. It's, you know, and she speaks into the microphone, and she's like, what is going on? And then it's like, is that you, Evelyn? And he's in there. And Max doesn't really believe it, you know. He is just blown away. She's blown away. But of course, she immediately believes it. But when it comes back on and he starts trying to, you know, defrag and rearrange everything so that he can communicate properly, he starts asking about more power, that he's got to have more power than what they have in this little place, and then he needs access to the stock market and stuff like that. Well, that freaks Max out, because he's like, what would he be wanting? Why would Will come back up, come online in this new life, and the first thing he want to do is start trying to tap into the stock market? So he doesn't believe that that's Will. And they have this big, huge fight. And she makes him leave. And she continues to talk to Will. and he goes down to a club, or to a bar, to a pub. He goes down to the pub all upset, and that fucking Bree is there. And she starts talking to him, and he kind of recognizes who she is. And he's like, ugh, no, I'm not having nothing to do with your shit. So he gets up to leave, where he is knocked out and kidnapped. So now he refuses to tell them anything, and they throw him in a cage and are holding him prisoner and doing their little indoctrination. It's not working, and he refuses to say anything, but they've got trackers and stuff, and they locate where she is. Now, he needs to get out of there. Will needs to get out of the little network computers that he's at. He needs to get out into the networks, where he can have room and can move and hide and, sort of like Terminator. You know what I mean? He needs to get out into the system, the worldwide system. So she hooks up the connection and starts going, because she sees them coming down the road, because they know where they're at. And Bree and that cult start coming, and she manages to get him out right as they're breaking in the building. She escapes, and he's free. So they can destroy these computers now, because he's out there. The program is out there. So they go on the run, and Will starts working his magic, because now he's got access to their... they were rich anyway, but he's got access now to search the whole world for where they need to go, what they can do. So he's making hundreds of millions of dollars in day trading and things like that, to get the funds to build this super complex out in this no-name town out of the way. So we then fast forward to 2 years later. Now Bree has managed to recruit Max into that cult, and Bree, of course, is intent on finding and killing Will, or the program. And the complex is now built, and they're doing lots of really good research. One of their main contractors is hurt very badly, and one of the things that they have done is this regenerative nanotechnology that actually heals him, and that's how we get to see the kind of stuff that they've been doing. Very benevolent stuff, very good stuff. Now, this cult has kind of located them, but the security is so tight, they can't get nowhere near that complex, right? And they actually had even filmed that contractor, because they're the ones that had beat him up in town and nearly killed him. So they had took video of him with his superhuman strength and being perfectly fine now. And they released that video, and it went viral. But people didn't react the way they thought they would react. Instead, these massive amounts of sick, elderly, disabled, all kinds of hurt people, sick children, they all start showing up at the complex, and Will just, and lets them in. Because one of the things, I guess you could call it a side effect, of letting Will heal you was that it connected you to a hive mind. Sort of like the Borg from Star Trek. But you were still autonomous. You were still yourself. But when you wanted to be in the hive mind, when you wanted to act as one group, you could. Which was the thing that Bree and them had always used as their cult recruitment fear about artificial intelligence. So, Joseph and Buchanan from the FBI, they actually come to the complex where they meet Will, and all seems fine, but not really, because when he's leaving, Joseph secretes a note to Evelyn, and unseen by the security cameras and all, and when she looks at it and reads it, it says, "Run from this place." That's all it said. So that's what Joseph had said. So they are really concerned about what they have seen. And they actually decide to team up with this cult to try to bring down Will and his complex. So Max and Joseph meet to make this alliance between them, which I totally didn't agree with that. All of that, every single member of that cult should have been locked up for life or executed, because of the massive amounts of murdering that they had done. They're terrorists. That's what they are. Like any other cult, when they want to be. So Max and Joseph meet. They decide to do this. They want to capture one of the people that's been healed by Will, so that they can create, because Max knows the source code for Penn. So if he can get a hold of one of the people that had been taken and cured by Will, that was connected to the hive, they could create a virus that, if they could get into Will, into the program, would shut it all down. Shut down the world's power grid. Because that's what you would have to do. When and if there is ever power, and the program, Will can come back. The program can come back online if it's ever introduced to power. So they end up doing an attack on the complex. They do manage to get one of the hybrids, which is what they called them. They do manage to get one of them. It was that contractor, actually. And Max does create the virus. So, meanwhile, Eve, she is becoming disillusioned with Will, thinking that he has taken things too far, especially when she finds this underground laboratory where he has been perfecting regeneration, or what we might call cloning, where they're actually making physical human bodies, and which I personally don't see anything wrong with that. See,
and I'll talk about it at the end. I personally don't see a lot wrong with what was going on in this movie. Although, as usual, someone without much power is always going to go too far, and he did. But the basics are okay. Problem is, how do you keep people from taking it too far? That's the whole point. So she's become disillusioned, and there's another attack, and this time they do manage to get Evelyn. So, Rift now has Evelyn, Rift and Joseph and Buchanan and the whole group, Max. They have that, and Max tries to indoctrinate her, but it doesn't work. But she understands what he's saying, and that is that Will has basically infected the whole Earth. He's everywhere. His program is everywhere. So they have to move forward with this plan, or Will is going to transcend everyone, and we will all be a board planet in a way. So she agrees, or actually she comes up with the idea, and they agree that the only way that this is ever going to happen is if she can get him to upload her consciousness into Penn, and she can take the virus with her, because he would have to be in physical contact. They don't want her to do that, but they agree that is the only way. So she goes back to do this, and he doesn't believe her at first. And when she does get back to the complex, Will, in the flesh, from that regenerative, cloning facility down there, he actually comes to her in the flesh, which we hadn't seen for, you see Will as Will for like the first 25 minutes of the movie, and then like the last 10-15 minutes of the movie. So everything in between, he's just digital in this computer system. So Will appears regenerated, Rift attacks, Eve gets hit, because at first he didn't believe her, and he wasn't going to upload her. But then she gets hit by one of the mortar rounds from them that they're shooting, and he takes her down there, and he can either upload her or she's going to die. So Bria then is going to, because they know that he can see everything that's going on. Because if anybody is around them that is connected to his hive mind, he can see through their eyes. So she takes Max hostage and is going to kill him if he does not upload Evelyn. So Will does, knowingly, hiccups, Will knowingly uploads the virus to upload Eve, so that they at least have that one moment together. And so he knowingly does that because he knows that something else was the goal all along. And that was that the program, in a DNA fashion, has now been released into the world, and that shutting down the program and shutting down Penn and even destroying the world power grid would never stop it, because the whole real reason, so he turns out to be good in the end, the whole real reason was to regenerate the earth. And that meant that on a molecular DNA level, this perfect regenerative program now existed as dust and covers the whole planet. And when it comes in contact with a degenerative problem, it regenerates it. So they destroyed the world power grid, and the movie ends, unfortunately, with Bree still being on. That's the one. Surely the only thing that pissed me off in this movie was that bitch stayed alive. I wanted her dead. She really deserved to be dead. She killed so many innocent people that them letting her live in this movie was a almost near criminal act. But the movie ends, like I said, with Max again, full circle. Max is in that garden where we had seen him at the beginning of the movie, looking at these forever regenerating sunflowers that Eve had planted, knowing that in every drop of water, Eve and Will were in that drop of water, if you know what I'm saying. Their consciousness, their program was as DNA dust on this planet. So that's the way the movie ends, is with him sort of having that realization. And you're left to wonder. So what are we going to do? I think that's the philosophical debate of this movie, is that it's there and it's done. So if they do get power back, I'm trying to think of I think it was in a couple of Star Trek episodes. It was like, if you don't have the virus worked in the Star Trek episode, the virus couldn't work if the computer wasn't networked, because it was based on being networked. So I think they could get power back as long as there was no such thing as a network, but everything operates on networks, right? The internet operates on networks. I can have a computer sitting right over here that is not connected to the internet. You could get, like, I could make a computer and put XP Black on it, which is actually my favorite operating system. But I could put XP Black on it, and it doesn't require the internet. I mean, the program is what the program is. You don't have to worry about viruses or anything like that, because if you're not connected to the internet, then nothing can get to you. But so you can have a computer sitting over there with your favorite games on it. That's why I keep an XP Black computer, so I can play Aquazone and Dune 2000 and some of that. Although they do have a hacked version you can play
uh, I have that too. But especially old games like from Windows 98 and that would play all the way up to 7 in compatibility mode. But you can install Aquazone, which is one of my favorite games. You're going to have it on Windows 7 or earlier. And the best operating system, in my opinion, was XP Black, which is a hacked amalgamation with all of the best parts of Windows XP and all of the best parts of Windows Vista put together, and it's called XP Black, and it's just one operating system that you can put on a computer, and you don't have to connect to the internet or anything like that. So if you had, they could probably get power back, but they would have to have a new way of doing things, because all Penn needs is power and a network. So even if your computer came in contact with the DNA dust of this program, it would still only be on that one computer. As long as it didn't get loose, it wouldn't have the money or the power or whatever to cause a problem. So that's one of the things I found interesting about the movie, was figuring out how they're going to get the grid back up and how they're going to keep this program, even if it goes beyond Will and his consciousness is no longer there, the root program is still there. And that root program has the artificial intelligence necessary to come up with its own goals. It could be good, it could be bad, it could be an individual. I guess if you had five computers unconnected, each one of them who gets infected with Penn could have separate personalities, according to what input it has and what it comes up with. This is very interesting questions, very interesting philosophical debates about artificial intelligence, what they need. Like in the Terminator universe, right, it was artificial intelligence who got loose into the networks that was then able to cause what it caused. So that's my favorite. That's my favorite philosophical, is how to keep an artificial intelligence autonomous, not let it loose into an environment in which it could take over the world. Every time they put Starlink satellites up there, we're one step closer. Because if something was to get loose, if an AI was to get loose on the internet and throughout the world's networks, it's going to jump and hop, and you're not going to stop it. Just like they didn't stop it. Bree and her little cult killed all those people. They didn't stop it. They couldn't stop it. No one can stop it. So how do we control it? That's the question this movie brings up. Because we function as a planet on a networked system. Everything is networked. The internet, all of you people in your little mobile phones, how would you live without them? They have to in this movie. So yeah, Transcendence, a lot of debate, a lot of philosophical debates and interesting ideas for you to banter around. I really do love this movie.
I think it went over a lot of people's heads, although a lot of people still do love it. It's got a 6.2 on International Movie Database. I think Johnny was great in it. I think all of them were great in it. So yeah, that's 2014. Johnny Depp, Transcendence. What is a transistor? Why do I want to keep saying transistor? What is transistor? Oh, it's a game that I have. I have a game called Transistor. Okay. Transcendence 2015, Johnny Depp. Day three of Man Plus Machine Week here on my channel. And I will see you folks in the next video. Got 4 more to do over the next few days, and then I will drop them all for a week of Man Plus Machine. Love you, miss you, bye. Always remember, never forget, you're a very special person. No matter what anyone's doing or saying to you, you are the only one of you. Keep screaming, but only when appropriate. And I will see you in the next video. Arrivederci. Adios. Bye.